So, welcome to another episode of the Growth Compass. Shout out to our sponsor, Senders. If you want to do email deliverability correctly, hit the link in the description. Without them, it would not be possible to interview awesome people doing awesome things like Matt. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super cool. We were talking about it before we got on the call, but I do appreciate. I wish there were more people that came to the calls with the amount of energy that your shirt and your background and the plants have. It's given me a lot of life.
That's good. That's great. We try to make remote work exciting.
That's right. Well, if there's anyone out there that isn't familiar yet with who you are and what you're building, if you could just give a quick introduction.
So I'm a co-founder of an agency called Rudder. We primarily do websites for either public organizations or nonprofit organizations. We are primarily brought in because clients have run into issues with how whomever they were currently started a project with. We usually come in and just kind of right the ship and help them actually get their projects done.
Yeah, so something that I think is really specifically interesting about what you do and very important to me is the fact that it seems like, and something that you just confirmed, is that you're more in like the social impact space. You know, you do things for companies trying to do special things. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. We are primarily in nonprofits as well as government agencies. So mostly non-federal agencies, but places like the MTA in New York City or the city of Boston and a couple of counties out in California.
Amazing. I mean, it is, first of all, thank you for choosing to do that. And then also thank you for choosing to spend time here today, because I think, just growing a business in general is really interesting and difficult, but doing it in those areas is especially difficult. So I'm excited to hear about how you've been successful in doing that, because I think it's going to help a lot of other people do the same. So, but before we get into all of that, how is this your first company?
Yes. It's evolved. It's evolved over the years. So, it started out as myself. At that time, the company was called Hondo because that was after many years of consulting. And then my wife was a teacher and an artist and designer, and we decided to join forces, and so kind of merged Hondo and with her management skills and design skills into Rudder.
Nice. So what makes it kind of not like, have you had experiences? I mean, you said you were doing consulting that on your own, kind of freelance, or was it under a bigger?
When I was a consultant, it was under a bigger organization, and so we did a lot of projects, mostly in the financial services space. We've worked on projects where we've built out and created essentially entire companies, retirement management companies, essentially. I then went to work for the city of Boston as an employee because I kind of gotten burnt out on financial services. I ended up leaving after that. And
Awesome. So this theme of social impact, government work, stuff like this, is this being like, how did you end up in this area? Is it been like a passion of yours, since you were younger, or like did something happen?
I went to, like I said, I went to work for the city of Boston. I was the first engineer that they had working on like public facing sites for many years. And I was brought in by the city's chief digital officer at the time, and that's when I just found a passion for working in the government space. And then when I went out on my own, everybody, we all kind of splintered off into various different organizations, and it's been really good. I have a pre-built network out.
So then let's okay, because like I said, very interested in social impact, the government space. And so this experience specifically, doing the work that you did for the city of Boston, how long was that project in total, would you say?
I was there for about 2 years.
2 years. Okay. So just to try to get a sense of, I know every government's different, municipalities, all this stuff, but like generally speaking, when you're taking a government body that has, it's like, local, state, whatever level, there's generally like, and this is what I want to hear from you, but like from my perspective, there's a general main website, it facilitates people going in different directions and is the main landing page for a lot of the traffic. But then there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of other digital assets or whatever that need to act in ways that aren't just informational, but also facilitate some type of service potentially. And so, and then it can get extremely complicated from there, or whatever. So when you were at Boston, what were the things that you were working on?
I started with the website. So this was around the time that Boston redesigned its old website into the new one, which is boston.gov now. And then the city's designers did a lot of work on building out design systems. So anywhere you go in Boston today, if you see anything municipal related, you're going to see the work that came out of our team.
Wow.
The things that I did was do things like build out the website, and then also build out a development design system. So essentially the digital representation of what the designers were coming up with. We did things, transformed how Boston published public notices. So originally in Boston or in Massachusetts, you had to publish a public notice in a newspaper, and we worked with the city and the state, the Secretary of State, to essentially change the interpretation of the rules so that like Boston.gov could actually be the newspaper the public notices got published to.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so like we essentially changed the interpretation of the law within the state of Massachusetts.
That's crazy. They have to publish it. Well, I guess prior to the interpretation, but they had to publish it like in physical newspapers.
Yeah. They also had to publish it. They also had to publish it notice board in the bottom of City Hall via paper.
Wow.
And the reason that this change got made is at the time Boston was courting GE to move their headquarters to Boston, and somebody on the pin board downstairs overlapped the previous public notice by half an inch or an inch. And while the CEO of GE is in a helicopter on the way to Boston, someone sued the city to stop the meeting from happening because of that small overlap. And so the next day, the mayor's minions were in our office, like, what can we do? And we're like, well, why don't we just publish them on boston.gov, right? And so 3 weeks later, we had tore out the paper pin board in the bottom of City Hall, replaced it with a TV. We put all the public notices on boston.gov, and then on the TV, we had like a rotating digital screen that would show all the public notices. And now they have a couple of those TVs across the city as well. So, and now every city and town in Massachusetts can publish their public notices on the web.
Hey, well done.
Yeah, I mean, it's the exciting things. Like, this is when you're working in the digital space in government and nonprofits, like the amount of impact that we can have is just like, it's completely different than, working in the private sector.
Well, so then a wonderful segue. I don't know if, you're reading my mind or something, but great segue into my next question. Something I love discussing in this space, again, because it's something that's personal to me, is very easy in the private sector. When you have a product, you can say, okay, are we going to get a new website or not? Are we going to develop new digital assets or not? What's the return on our investment, the money that we're going to see later? But it's not always that straightforward. Sometimes it's almost like counterproductive to put monetary value on something that could improve, or it's inaccurate. Just putting a money value next to the amount of impact. Let's just stick on that example with that project. What was the definition of success? When the people above you were like, hey, this was successful, this project that Matt put up, was it just like number of TVs, or was it something that you guys used? Because money could be part of it, but I'm just assuming, like you just said, that there's something in addition to that.
So what we ended up, our definition of success for a lot of our projects is completely opposite from the private sector in a lot of ways. Our definition of success is when we build something, like, how long does a person actually have to be there to figure it out or whatever? Where in the private sector, they're like, well, we want clicks, we want page views, we want time on page and all this other stuff. We want you to show up and we want you to leave. We want you to figure out what you have done or what you wanted to do. Like if you're paying a parking ticket, like what's the fastest way we can have you pay a parking ticket, right? Enter your parking ticket, open Apple Pay, pay it, done. And then you're gone, right? And so like for public notices, the definition of success was, can constituents just go to a website and find the public notice that they're looking for? Yes or no? And if they can, then we have made it 1,000 times more accessible because they didn't have to buy the newspaper. They didn't have to travel to City Hall and see a pin board down below. And we also made it a lot easier for the city clerk to post them because no one has to gather them up and go down to a pin board and pin them to a board. They can just enter the details on a website, hit publish, and they're there.
And so these are the types of things where you sit down and you say, okay, we've completed the project and this is successful because, and then the things that you just listed.
Yeah. So we did one project for the MTA in New York City, where the whole purpose of the project was to save them money on their web hosting, and we ended up saving them. We found a way to save them a couple $1 million over the course of a 3-year contract, right? Which you look at transit agencies and you look at how they're being funded. $2 million is that's a good chunk of change to spend somewhere other than on their website.
Yeah, right. So then, okay.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. No, just because I wanted to again, man. This is great. I mean, I feel like I'm almost a guest. You're directing this conversation. It's great because I'm curious. You mentioned we talked through the Boston thing, which is important, and then you started to mention the MTA gig and things like this. How is it that you went from this roughly 2-year experience in the Boston government to then this collaboration to then spin out and going on your own? What was it like afterwards to get these contracts? Was it a situation where you were like, hey, I did something significant for a place with significant brand, or did you have to do some outbound stuff? Did you have to filter inbound leads? How was all of that?
So for us, it's primarily been word of mouth and referrals. We do try to work on the outbound side of things, but like I said, it's primarily been through referrals. So everybody that I've worked with in the past through some, either City of Boston or other organizations, they've all fanned out into various different organizations. And, you generally, whenever they have a problem, I'm one of the, we're usually one of the first people they call.
So how does the work because you mentioned websites at the beginning, and I think that's a very tangible thing that people can grasp as far as something that an agency can do. But then you talked about different other projects that are more of these larger picture systems that you're building, and so and you can continue with the MTA example if you want. How is it that engaging in these projects that you found they contribute to the furthering of the growth of your clients, whether that's monetarily or whether that's extending the impact that they're able to have?
Yeah, so what we do, our focus is on taking the team that currently exists within an organization and allowing them to essentially multiply their efforts. So when we come into an organization, they generally don't have any process, or the process is broken at some point. They usually are, what's a good way to say this? They're not looked highly upon by the rest of the organization. They generally have been overloaded with projects, and they just don't know how to uncover themselves from that load. And so when we show up, our primary focus is actually on getting the current team to the point of being confident and shipping. And, when we're, if we're doing a website or if we're helping them with larger technical systems, that's almost secondary, because at the end of the day, we're not going to be there forever. In government and nonprofits, more than likely, these people are going to be there for quite a while. Because either they're union employees and so our goal is to help them elevate themselves in the organization and become a trusted resource again. And so, like a lot of the work we've been doing with the counties down in California is exactly that. So they, kind of stopped delivering. Um, and so we've helped them get back into a rhythm, get back into a process. And now they're being brought into the group is being brought into other projects within the county to help them, help bring their expertise compared to where we started 2 years ago with them. It's a complete 180.
Wow. So then, okay, so two questions out of that. The first one is more closely related to what you were just discussing. So when you're working with these government entities and when you're working with these nonprofits and you embark on these things that are innovative and potentially challenging to the status quo, I mean, I recognize that there's probably like a pain point through which like the conversation happened in the first place, so that probably helps with the reception. But as far as implementing, the like seeing these projects to a place where you're successful, what are the types of hurdles you run into, whether it be in government or nonprofit or both?
General inertia of the organization. So a lot of times the organizations will want to move slowly. They'll want to double check everything, and they really enjoy spending money on studies to figure out if something is something that they should do versus just giving it a shot. What's the lowest cost effort to improve a service for a constituency? And then if you can, give that essentially call it a pilot, throw it out there, see what works, see what doesn't, you get a lot more feedback than that, and it actually costs a lot less money.
So you find that these entities are typically less open to doing something like that, and that's because of the environment. Do you like, because there's part of a bigger conversation that I have with a lot of people that work in this space, and do you feel like it's a part of like a greater, like the culture of government spaces, or the culture of nonprofit, or is it something else?
Oh, it's absolutely the culture. Everybody is trying not to be tomorrow's headline news. They're trying not to be in the paper, and so in that kind of avoidance, they're less open to risk taking. But there are ways of putting things out into the world in a government space that it could be a beta, a pilot, an alpha. Like there's any number of ways you can call it to help soften the blow if something does go horribly wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other, so related to that was the second question: people that are adverse to this amount of innovation stuff, does it ever get in? How does it interact with your ability to grow the agency, to acquire new business, things like this?
From an agency perspective is in our focus on governments is growth is the hardest part because the sales cycle is extremely slow on the government side of things. And when you factor in any political changes, it can cause organizations to want to slow down because they don't know what's going to happen. It's less about which side of the political spectrum anyone's on, and it's more just when you throw in a little bit of chaos. These organizations, they just the same way as they do on their projects, they want to reduce the risk as much as possible. So if there's any amount of chaos, they want to slow down, either any digital initiatives that they have or
Sure.
anything like that.
So then in this and sorry, how long in total would you say you've been running this?
This would be almost year 8.
That is that's such a benchmark, I'm gonna say, because it is difficult to start any business. It's difficult to have a business for 3 years, 5 years, 8 years is definitely an accomplishment. So great job. What has your personal experience been as an entrepreneur, as an agency owner? Within all, within the space, within the things that we talked about, the hurdles, all this stuff.
That's a good question. I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's always a lot of work, and after 8 years, we're finally getting to the point where I prioritize my time and have started to find somewhat of a work-life balance. The pandemic years were insane. Like
Sure.
it just took a really long Everybody needed everything, and they all needed it right away. Right. And so we finally got to the point where things have started to settle down a bit, and we're now finding ourselves with some time to actually think about other things that we might do, like building out products that we know that that our clients might enjoy, and doing some things like that.
So why entrepreneurship versus doing similar work at a bigger organization that would provide potentially more stability?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like we talked about, in 8 years of accomplishment, you're talking about this work-life balance, all of these, common experiences and stuff. So why entrepreneurship versus, a job at a potentially bigger company?
I've done the job thing, and it's just not well suited to my personality style. I don't know that I'm not well suited for it, and I've been doing entrepreneurial things for I've had this business for 8 years, and I've always been doing other things, even on the side, like when I had full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Trying to get things built.
So you're born this way. It's in you.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have two more questions for you, and the first one is we kind of touched on some, but I'm curious. At the moment, what would you describe as the biggest hurdle for you as far as growth of the agency, or in any of your projects, and how is it also an opportunity?
So the biggest hurdle to growth right now is that political chaos that I mentioned earlier. Like it just it causes organizations to freeze up, but we also see it as an opportunity to as an agency owner, one thing is, we're always selling people's time, and there's only a finite amount of that time. And in order to sell more time, we have to bring on more people. And it's like, just this thing that's just constantly kind of eating at itself. And so we are investing time into building out products. Through the 8 years, we've seen a lot of things, and we've seen a lot of places that could be, essentially be improved a little bit. And so we are working on, products and working on ways in which AI can be more beneficial to our clients, so we can start to have a better conversation with our clients when they come asking those types of questions.
Nice. Wow. Well done. That opportunity is very clear and is directly. I love that. That was really great. And then lastly, in all this stuff, what inspires you?
Helping people. So, like anything that we're doing that has a direct impact on people is always exciting. It's probably the most exciting. Like even, whether or not it's a constituent in, of a government agency, or it's actual, like the people within the government agency. Like if we're able to do things like, reduce the amount of time that it takes for, a planning worker to, get a project, from, from a planning commissioner into the website or whatever. Like if we can save them 20% of their time, like what could they be doing with that time to help constituents more as well? In a lot of the work that we've done, we have direct impact on a lot of people. The MTA has a couple million extra dollars because we, did a great job auditing their web hosting. It sounds menial almost, but like,
Yeah.
again, it's a large chunk of change. And during COVID, we helped 100,000, essential workers get around the city while the subway was closed. Like, and then in Boston, all the public notices, people aren't having to place things on pinboards. The entire state changed its rules based on the work that we did. Yeah, that's why I wake up, I guess.
Keep me fired up. Let's go, man. Well, thank you so much for seriously. I think everything you're speaking to, like I said, I'm very passionate about. It's important to me that people like you are out there doing what you're doing, and I genuinely, thank you for choosing to do it. If anyone else was inspired to follow along with your journey, what's the best way to do that?
Follow me on LinkedIn, I guess. Matthew Crist.
Nice. Awesome. Go do it. Go do it. Get inspired. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to stay in touch and see where you go. Yeah.